Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Accessible Content for Online Courses, the quick training slash webinar. We are joined here today with me, Stephen Bradford, Salome Asion, the other online learning. It's in the afternoon. The other online learning instructional designer. And then we're also here with Miss Sarah Ratliff. She is our resident expert from the Disability Access Center, who will be presenting some information regarding accessible content. Please be aware, and I don't have the dates in front of me now. See if I can find it real quick. That this is going to be the first of 3 webinars that we're going to do based on accessibility. This first webinar here will cover the following items on the screen: descriptive links, accessible color, helping you understand what color selection you should be using when you're putting together your Brightspace page, and principles of using accessible images or decorative. We're also going to have another session which goes into more in depth regarding images. So when you have to put in larger descriptions for your images, alt text for your images, how to do that, and understanding the differences between using just a regular decorative image or an image that needs to convey information. And then the last session is going to be over converting PDF, Word documents, and I can't think of the last one, PowerPoints, to make sure that they're also accessible in your course. And we'll go over that information as well. I believe it's April 11th. Today is the 26th. April 11th is the last one. Today is the 26th. And then there's one, I believe, maybe 2 weeks from now would be the second one. The last one, I think, is around April 11th. All right, without any further ado, I am going to turn it over to Ms. Ratliff, who is going to talk to you guys about descriptive links.
Good afternoon, my name is Sarah. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join me. First thing we're going to look at would be descriptive links, and that's dealing with section 508 and making sure that these hyperlinks that you use are accessible. Now, the first thing we'll look at is where you would put your description in Brightspace. So once you create your module, you're going to all right, sorry about that. Once you create your module, you would go to the Up Create tab, and once you select that down arrow, you're going to select Create a Link. And this is where you will have your title bar. Now this is where you would put in a concise but descriptive description of where this hyperlink is taking a student that's going to click on it. Because what's going to happen is students are going to be using screen reading software such as JAWS, or they're going to use screen magnification software to make the screen larger. And when they use the software, it's more helpful for their navigation if they would know where they're going, where a hyperlink is going to take them before they click on it, because the JAWS screen reading program will literally read out the entire web address, including the HTTP. So if you have a very long web address, it's going to read that entire address until it gets to the end. But if that description comes before you have that hyperlink, as a student is navigating the web website, they would know, okay, is this the correct link that I need to look for? If not, then they can use their keyboard shortcuts to navigate to the next hyperlink. And for an example, when it says open as external resource, even if it's a simple page, it's better to have that website open in its own separate tab, because what could happen is if you find a website that has a lot of media on there, whether it's color photographs, whether it's audio and video, sometimes when it's opened up within the Brightspace page, it might unexpectedly crash, especially if a lot of people are already on that website. So if it opens up in its own separate tab, you mitigate that risk of it crashing. And I have a couple examples of how that would look. So we'll take the NASA's website as a good example, and the description that I have for it is the official National Aeronautic and Space Administration, or NASA, homepage. It would not be acceptable to just put the acronym NASA, NASA, because we can't assume that everyone knows what that acronym means. And because it's an official homepage, it's good to know that you're going to an official page and not just a page that anyone created about NASA. So what would happen is I have it where once you click on that link, it actually will open up a new tab. That way, all of these pictures, even though they're not moving pictures, it's still in high definition media color. So this page does open up in Brightspace, but it might crash if there's a lot of people on the actual NASA website. And you want to make the description as detailed but as short as possible, because screen reader is going to hit that description first, and that way you don't have five or six sentences trying to explain where that hyperlink is going to go. It will just help the navigation flow a little bit better. Okay. So the next thing we're going to look at would be the accessible color selections, and that's also dealing with the Section 508. And I did include a PDF of what the colors, what the actual colors would look like when you're using it on the website, and how the text colors would look on those accessible color palettes. And based on the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, the WCAG, for the Section 508, they have broken down the requirements for using colors, whether a person has a disability or not. So these colors would help reduce eye fatigue. It would help for better flow of information. If you use a red background with green letters on there, you risk losing people that are red-green colorblind, and they would not see the information because both of those colors are matched on top of each other. And for background colors, there's a palette for you to use, and this pulls from all the available color combinations that you can use on the web. But these are the acceptable colors as allowed for the US web design system from the United States government. And let's look at that. All right. Oh, that's not the one I want. Let's go back. There it is. Okay, so this is a 9-page document, but basically it's the swatches of colors and how they're used. So this is the entire palette of acceptable 508 color contrasts colors, depending on how to use these colors. So of course you will have your primary colors, but you may want different shades of that primary color. So they're giving you the ideas of here are the acceptable primary colors and their different shades. And these are for typically for a background page. So for example, Brightspace uses a white background and typically black words. That's a very highly accessible, or even the reverse, having a black page with white text on it. But if you want to emphasize certain aspects of Brightspace, say there's a bullet point or there's something that you want to draw extra attention to, you can do that with some changes of color. And again, here are the primary colors and the different shades. So you can use red to bring attention to something really important. You just would not put green text on it, because then they would disappear within each other. And within all of these background colors, they give you your tertiary colors in case you needed to draw more attention to different types of alerts for the students. And then for the text accessibility, they actually will show you, for example, the primary darkest color of text on a white background so that you have an idea of what that text would look like on a website. And in case you want to change the background color, you can see how white or black would change how the text would look to a student. And again, this is to reduce the different eye fatigue that you just a regular student would encounter, especially if they have to read a very long essay. Let's see. And again, this document is included. And the last thing that's one of the most important would be the use of decorative images. And decorative images are not pertinent to providing information that is conceptually critical to a learning or teaching point. And you would just give a general description of either what the picture is or what's happening in a picture. So for example, I have a picture that I'll click on, and it's the description I have is it's just a tiny decorative owl. So a person knows that, okay, it's an owl. It could be put there for science class, but it's just put there basically for fun. So there would be the picture, and down here, just a tiny decorative owl. However, on the occasion that you have informative images, you need to assess what information that image is going to convey. And the other example I have would be the picture of a double helix. Now, if we look at this, this conveys a lot of information, although it may not look like it does because you have pieces of it that have labels. However, if a student cannot see this information due to them being completely visually impaired and they have to get a description of it, or if they need to enlarge the screen because they need the picture to be much larger, they might miss pieces of this. And again, that description would be important because something like this, because it's curved, a lot of that information would get lost, especially the labels on the side. As you get the picture larger, those labels would start to get lost on the sides of it. And for something like this, a more detailed description is needed. And down here, I do have a basic description for it. It actually could be much, much longer, but this is pretty much how detailed informative images need to be. And this is basically a diagram of a DNA molecule. You have to mention that it has the two strands linked around each other. Even if you have to convey the information in a way that anyone can look at the information, and even if they don't understand what a DNA strand is, those words need to paint a picture that matches what a visual student would be able to understand if they're looking at it. And it's the same thing that I would have to do when you send documents to the DAC to be converted. This is the type of detail we would have to go through when we have images, whether it's charts or graphs. But the important thing is that these images have to be detailed enough to really convey the same information for a sighted student in order for them to be very successful in your course. And that's what we ultimately want. Let's see. Get to it. That's in the way.
Okay. So, was there anything else that you wanted to cover? No. Okay. So I'm just going to touch up on a couple of things that she talked about, and then ask you if there are any questions about what she covered. So we didn't go into a lot of detail. We didn't want to overwhelm you because this is just the first start. Give me just a second, and I'm going to share my screen. In just a second. All right, let me see if I zoom in a little bit. So this Brightspace shell that we're in is called HWOL Accessibility Core Shell. This is something that we just put together to put in resources that will help you. What we're probably going to do is make sure that everybody has the ability to self-enroll into this section so that you'll be able to get this same information and the example. So the documents that she talked about today, you'll be able to have access to it. So we just made links or content areas over on the left side here. So about accessible links. So I just kind of wanted to go over that. So she gave you the information about if you're going to use a link in your course, it should be descriptive, something similar like this. And this is if you were doing it in Brightspace. But I think she had a document here on how it should look if you were doing it. So I'm just kind of scrolling down a little bit with the same steps that she already had. But this is how it should look like if you're putting it in a document or if you're going to actually use the full URL. You should always have a description before. So if it's on a document or piece of paper, or if you're putting it under course resources and you want to use the entire URL, then you still need to put a description beforehand. So like this says here, detailed description, or you can just label it description and it will say Pearson My Lab and Mastering sign-in page. Then you would have the link after that. We kind of told you to do it a different way, which is basically writing out this full amount here and then highlighting, then making this the URL. But you don't have to necessarily do that. We've learned that today, is that you can do it this way here. It's also accessible. But basically the reason behind this is that when the screen reader reads, it needs to tell the student where they're going to when they click on that link. The second thing with this is to make sure that you do not use links that are extremely long. If you think about it, if you have a link here that you really needed to use, and let's say it end up being, as you put it in someplace, it end up being 4 or 5 lines long, that screen reader has to read all of that information so that the student knows that that's where they want to go. We don't want to have to do that. If you happen to find something that you really, really want to use and it has a very long link, we ask that you go and find a URL shortener. So you can go to, there's one that's called bit.ly, there's one that's called tinyurl. I know Google used to do it, but I don't think they do it anymore. They're phasing it out. But you can find places that will be able to at least shorten that URL, and then you can at least type that URL behind, use that shorter URL behind there so that the student knows that they're in the right location. Does that make sense? Okay, you guys are pretty quiet. Just want to make sure that we're covering this clearly and thoroughly, because to let you know, when it comes to the checklist, maybe for summer, but guaranteed it will be there for fall. We're gonna ask you, we're gonna hold you responsible for making sure you go through your course and making sure that your links are accessible, at least at minimum your links. This is something that's very easy to do. It's a little time consuming, but it's not that time consuming, but you can do this. This is something very simple to do that we can expect all of our instructors to take care of, and it shouldn't be an issue for our students. One of the other things I wanted to show you about, or show you, is the decorative images. So you see how Sarah mentioned earlier, if if it's just decorative, you can type just decorative. Or if you have an image where you're going to need to put a little bit more information in. Again, we're going to have another session to explain to you even more a clear idea of the differences between types of images, whether it's just decorative or whether it's going to convey information. She gave an example of how much information or how detailed you need to have your information underneath your image, so that the screen reader will be able to tell the student exactly what they're looking at, especially if it's conveying information. I'm also going to show you how to do that in your course if you're not aware how to do it. To add an image to your course, you can do it, probably there's multiple ways of doing it, but I'm just going to the point where I'm just going to click on the Upload Create button, and I'm just going to create a file. And in Brightspace, they give you the opportunity to create a quick title here. So I'm going to say, let's say sample image 2. And then if you wanted to add an image into your Brightspace course, you'd click on the image icon here, or picture icon. And then you select, find that image I'm looking for. So I'm going to click on my computer, and I'm just going to find an image. I'm going to click on upload. And then I'm just going to find a different image here. So I have my image attached. Let me go back real quick. Did it give me that option? It may come up after I select this, so give me a second. It's going to tell me I already have it. Okay, this is what I was looking for, this pop-up window. So it asks you here to provide an alternative text. So this is another place where you'll be able to put that alternative text information at, or description of that text, that image. Just be aware, an instructor asked us earlier, is there a limit on how much you can put here under the alternative text area? And this is an area where if a student run their mouse over the image, so they need to see, they need to know what that image is. So maybe they can't, maybe they are hearing impaired, but they can't see. And for some reason they want to see what that image is, and you want to put an alternative text there. You can put an alternative text, but it is limited. So I think I did it and I tested it earlier. I'm not going to do it again now, but it is limited to, let's say, maybe a sentence and a half. Is about how long you can do detailed alternative text here. You can also mark this as this image is decorative as well. So it will be labeled in the system as decorative, and I think as a student put their mouse over it, it also come up as decorative. But once you put your alternative text in there, so I'm going to say image of time trade, scheduling. I'll click on OK. So as a student put their mouse over, you see where it says image of time trade scheduling. Kind of hard to see here. But now the image is accessible. And then you can push publish. Now you can also, after I push publish here, and this is basically similar to what she did, and another instructor also mentioned to us that if you are comfortable with HTML, so I wonder if I can go back and edit. I can edit the HTML area here, and I can also put in a description in the edit. Okay, so this is where we're at. I can put it in the description here as well. So I think this is what she was talking about, I believe. She was able to type in a description underneath this particular area. So if you're comfortable with that, you can put a description here, because this is limited when you put your mouse over, it's limited in the amount of text you can put. There's also the other place which Sarah showed you earlier. Actually, there's two other places. What she did was she came down here to actually the description of that submodule area. She hit on the description, and then here you can also type in a longer amount of description in case you need that. Most of the courses that are going to need really detailed description images are probably going to be math and probably art, where you're really trying to convey something with those images, which a few words or a few sentences are not going to work. You're really trying to convey a concept. I think most people, a sentence is probably long enough, but you can also do that, type that information here. And then Sarah also gave a good bit of advice as well, is that if you feel like you have a lot of information you need to convey in that image, she said you can actually write it up, you said in Word, correct? Attach that image in Word, attach that Word document to your course. Doing that will also allow the student to be able to know what that image is about, okay? So hopefully all the ideas that we gave to you make sense, that you guys are willing to and are ready to go into your Brightspace course sooner than later and start making these adjustments. Because believe it or not, it's not the IDMs who are making this mandate. It's not the Disability Access Center who's making the mandate, but the mandate is actually coming from the top down. So the president really wants us to have all of our courses accessible. Not 100%, of course. We know that, that's the goal, the end goal, and it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take us a couple of semesters before we're really at a place where we're great. But we need to start, and we need to start as soon as possible. So this is why we're on these sessions. This is why you're going to continually hear information about accessibility, because it is very important, and we're actually behind the curve. We should be in front of this already. Our courses should be on this level, but they're not. So we need everyone to participate and start really working forward to making sure our courses are accessible. It should just be part of what we do when we design our courses. When you get a course, if you've never taught a section before, the first thing you should start thinking about is, okay, is everything in here is accessible? So kind of keep your mind in that direction, and that's basically the information we wanted to convey with you today. Are there any questions about what we covered?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me stop my sharing. You can go ahead and ask your question. Give me 1 second. Before you ask your question, just know that we're also going to make sure that this information is conveyed on the checklist as well. At minimum, we're going to ask you about making sure that your hyperlinks are all accessible. We're not going to ask you about images or anything like that at this time. Again, we're going to slowly do everything. But between summer and fall, we're going to start making sure that's on the checklist, that you guys are at least making your links accessible. All right, go ahead, Camilla. Go ahead and ask your question.
I teach calculus online, and for example, I don't know if I can share or you can go in my online course. Can you access my Brightspace?
And I'll make you
Or
moderator, and then you can share. Yeah, give me 1 second.
Oh, okay.
You're now moderator.
Okay, so I'm gonna share the screen. Can you see it? Let me see.
Yeah, it takes a little bit.
Okay. It takes, yeah, it's slow. I don't even know if the share button is active.
I don't see any.
Entire screen. Okay. Now, I think. Can you see it now?
Now we see it.
Yes.
So, we have I have a lot of problems where students have to get information from the graph. So this is an image of the graph of a function, and students have to answer those 5 questions. I was wondering how much information should I put in that image, in the description of the image? What should I write?
Okay, especially for math problems and graphs like this,
Yes.
it would have to be broken down as to what's happening pretty much everywhere. So the x-axis, the y-axis, what are the points doing? What is the trend of the line? So for us, when we have to do this in a DAC, we have to literally we take a few moments and break it down, see what information is happening in here. With enough information without giving away the answer.
Yeah, so this is going to be a problem because you see, is to state
offhand, but
yeah.
I'm one of two people that come up with the description for the math problems in the DAC. So spend a couple of minutes looking at it, seeing what's going on, but pretty much have to describe everything that's happening. Since the x-axis and y-axis are labeled, we would have to mention that.
Yeah, and this is one
Saloma.
in any course we will have.
How would you describe this graph? I mean, as an instructor and math instructor, if I wanted to describe it in a very simple manner, something like maybe 2 or 3 sentences, how will you describe it?
I won't be able to describe it without answering the questions. The questions that I'm asked, so because they have, first of all, to state the absolute extrema, absolute maximum and minimum, they have to identify the highest point on the graph and the lowest point on the graph. So if I start describing, so I can say that this is a function that is not continuous, so it has some interruptions. But again, I really don't know how much information or how I can give information without, you know, answering the questions that I want them to answer without any of my information. I don't know if it makes sense or not.
I think it does make sense, because that is the struggle of doing that. Because once again, according to, I mean, what we know, if this particular a problem, weeknight problem, is open with over to someone who is, I would say, what do you call it, hard to see, is, blind, or, difficult to see. A lot of information needs to be provided to that particular student to understand, okay, you do have a graph showing X and Y's, X axis, and showing the pattern, all those are the way you. That is why maybe with this kind of question, you can put the minimum information, but at the same time, maybe there's a need for that particular student, if he's taking that exam, maybe to go to DAC, this Disability Access Center, to have a help whilst he's working on a particular assignment. Yeah, I think that is, you can do as much as you can, but once again, you will not be able to write a whole paragraph or a whole dissertation just explaining to the student. Yeah.
Yeah, because I have the same issue in face-to-face classes, right? It's difficult if I have an impaired vision student. It's very difficult for me to explain what's on the graph without, saying too much. So probably DAC will be the best place, but I really don't know when, how, who's gonna help me. I'm gonna try to limit. It seems like I don't have any other choice for now. To limit this is a discussion, so I want students, to help each other to understand the basic concepts visually. And we have that in all math courses. It's part of the SLO, how to get information from the graph.
Yes, Saladin. Professor Saladin, we're aware that this is difficult. And again, we, we're all learning as we go. We're gonna have to
Okay.
find out, where that level starts and ends. We'll definitely be referencing the DAC. We'll get as much support as we can to you to help you out
Okay.
with that. And anyone else who, is trying to figure out exactly how much information that they need to actually put in there, but enough that you can support the student, like she mentioned earlier. So
Okay.
it's going to be tricky as we go along, but we're going to do the best that we can. Again, we've done some research. Nobody is 100%. Nobody is perfect, but we need to definitely start in that direction. So that's what we're asking.
Okay.
Are there any other questions out there? Concerns? Not this time. All right. Well, we appreciate everyone showing up today. Thank you for being here. Hopefully, you'll be able to make our additional sessions that we have. Please let us know if you have any additional questions. We'll be trying to sending out more information. And the recording of this session, we will send out, if not later on today, we'll send it out by tomorrow. Okay, so you can refer back to this. And we'll give you more information about how we're going to have you added into that resource course. Okay. All right. If you guys don't have any other questions, thank you for attending. And thank you, Sarah, for helping us out today. I believe she will also be helping us out the other sessions as well, maybe. All right. So Sarah will be around for those other 2 sessions as well. All right. Thank you, and you guys have a wonderful day.